All right. Hey, so hello everyone. This is Vanner64 with the Seed of Might YouTube channel. We have a very special and a little bit different video today. We're going to be talking with Krycek from Seed of Might. So, Krycek, say hello.
Hey,
Hey, our topic today is going to be on hi-fi audio. I think it's something most people either have never heard of or maybe have heard of it but don't know too much about it. And we have Krycek here who has worked extensively with different audio formats, especially hi-fi audio from VHS tapes. But before we get into the technical part, Krycek, if you could tell us, what's kind of your history with the Dragon Ball series as a fan?
it goes way back. If I remember, my earliest experience with Dragon Ball was probably when I was around 9 or 10. Believe it or not, it was actually with the Latin version of the series. We were visiting some of my grandparents at the time in Mexico, and it's almost a religious standard in Mexico that Dragon Ball Z is well beloved there. So that was my first introduction, and I was enamored by the series. And it wasn't until 2 years later that Cartoon Network started replaying it nonstop that my brother actually got me into watching the series full on. And then I fell in love with the lore, the history, the characters, and yes, I also did like the Faulkner score, but I have my affinity for the original too, and and that's basically what led me down this path of buying releases for Dragon Ball, uh, constantly trying to find the highest quality source for Dragon Ball, I should say, and it goes all the way up until I believe it was like 2001, 2002, that we still had cable at that time, and Cox introduced the international channel, and they were playing the Android arc, the Android cell arc at the time,
Mhm.
and I began recording it on VHS. And I was 13, 14. I had no idea what I was even listening to, not having speaking Japanese at all, and I was giddy as heck just watching it, and just like, okay, so I think this is what's going to happen next. Oh, this is actually what's happening next. And I watched that all the way up until the beginning of the tournament in the heavens.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, we stopped getting Cox at that point, and well, that's basically it when it came to the international portion. And I took advantage of Suncoast's never-ending BOGO sales, buy one get one free. So that's how I bought a lot of the DVDs for the singles. And I was always disheartened by that. Even on old CRT TVs, you would get the quality of the audio would be pretty low for the Japanese side, and the video quality, well, it was really bad, even by anime standards of that time. And eventually, when I hit college, I ended up saving some money, which led me to getting the Dragon Box disc. And well, the rest is history from there. And that's basically how it all boiled down, with me constantly trying to work at subtitles, fix audio, so on and so forth when it came to Dragon Ball.
Right. So it sounds like you've had a pretty deep association with the fandom, and you ran into what a lot of people in this Seed of Might server or who know about us have ran into, where you've been looking for the best in terms of both video, audio, and subtitles
Hmm.
quality. So if you remember, if you want to talk about it, what kind of got you into Seed of Might specifically?
It was by accident. I did not know. I left a lot of the fandom around 2012, 2013, and that was mainly because I was just finishing college and starting to get my first job. And so, like around 2020, I was married. I'm married. I have a child, and we were thinking, okay, pandemic just hit. We're in lockdown. What can we do? And I jokingly told my wife, "Hey, how about we watch all of Dragon Ball?" And she's like, "Are we really going to pull down all your Dragon Box discs for them?" I'm like, heck no. I'm not going to spend all my time remuxing all these. I'm going to try and find yeah, exactly, a higher quality source of these and see if anyone has done anything in the last, 6, 7 years since I left. And I ran into the iChaos packs, which were, I know that he jokes about it now and says that those were pretty bad to begin with, but compared to what everything else out there, it was pretty high quality. It had high quality subtitles, and it had a link to Discord to some channel called Seed of Might. And I joined just to see, hey, I wonder what else they're doing here. I'm curious, and that kind of led to me contributing to projects that we're still working on today.
Right, right. Yeah, that's good to hear. So, in the interest of pursuing, the highest quality, in this case, our topic's audio. What exactly is hi-fi audio? Like, let's start with a beginner explanation of that for anyone unfamiliar with the term.
Okay. Hi-fi goes way back. In the 20s and 30s, where they had, audio was starting to become a major thing with radio, becoming very popularized and becoming common in houses. But audio back then was mainly just mono, being just one channel. So it was just one channel spitting out all of the info, sound effects, music, voices, so on and so forth. And soon after, in the 40s and 50s, we got something called stereo. It became synonymous with hi-fi too, but stereo and hi-fi are basically the same thing, just that there's a little bit of difference on just how they're mastered. But for the sake of simplicity, hi-fi and stereo are the same for now. It was presented as the pinnacle of audiophiles. It was the pinnacle of sound, I should say, in which you would have a stereo setup, two speakers that will give you the integrity of the original sound recording in your home. And they used that as a selling point. And so mainly a lot of classical music was reproduced, re-recorded, and presented in stereo. And you might have seen this in old movies or even old TV shows, that a lot of couples would show off their hi-fi setup, and it would be this large table-sized entertainment center with a record player in the middle, two speakers on the side, and they would always play just orchestral music, because that was the big selling point, is to represent what high quality audio could sound in, and be able to represent it as high quality as the original performance. And like I said, the big selling point was that you would get a one-to-one reproduction of what the performers were experiencing in your home.
Nice. So I know in terms of the Dragon Ball projects you've worked on with hi-fi audio, both the original Dragon Ball series as well as Dragon Ball GT, that hi-fi audio is captured from a VHS. Now, something that kind of confused me at first, and I hope you could talk about, is, I'm of a certain age, and I think you're of that same age, where we really saw home video formats evolve in a way that I thought was linear, right? So for me, right, when I was first born, it was VHSs everywhere, right? Everyone had a VHS for movies. And then when DVD came out, we all kind of were told, like, hey, DVD's better. Get rid of your VHSs, throw them out. Now you have DVDs, that's better. And then a few years later, hey, Blu-ray's coming out. You have, a higher resolution, better audio quality. Blu-ray's better. You don't need the DVDs anymore. So why is it we would still want to go back to that VHS audio if we have DVD copies of the series?
That's a really good question, actually, and it's not just locked up with the anime community either. It goes beyond that. It's actually part of the cinephiles. The community of film archivists actually um, find old recordings more important than the recent new Atmos 5.1, Dolby Digital, Dolby True HD, so on and so forth, right? The fact is that a lot, what in the progression of everything evolving, video did start getting better and better, and in some cases it's not, but audio was kind of left behind, and I believe audio is equally as important as video. And it is a pet peeve of mine that when studios spend millions of dollars restoring films only to skimp out on the audio and just give you either a low end lossy version of the original audio mix, or they just give you a remix, right? And I see that as disrespecting the original audio engineers that worked on the film. And I wish that more would be able to be able to, in more studios would be able to include the a high quality version of the original mix alongside their remixes. But it quickly became the norm, because a lot of studios felt that if you're able to demonstrate that this 5.1 mix is better than the old mix, that people would gravitate to that. And for some time in the 2000s up to the 2010s, that was the norm actually. Everyone looked at let's say the Godfather Blu-rays when they came out, and they looked at the original audio mix being 192 kilobits Dolby Digital, right? And compared to the Dolby True HD lossless version in 5.1, and to some it would be like, no, the 5.1 is it. That's the best version. But in reality, even though it's lossy, if you were to actually compare both of them, the original mono mix for that movie sounds better. And what I mean by better is not that it's just it's a perceived thing. It's just that it's more about the dynamics and the fidelity of the audio. Things sound more clear. Things sound the way that the audio engineers actually wanted the audience to feel when they heard the movie as they watched it. And there wasn't these when you listen to a remix. And now bear in mind that I'm not a hater when it comes to remixes. There are some remixes that are perfectly fine, and some that even surpass what the original mix could offer. But but there are many that try to become just a bombastic alternative, and sadly, there are situations where the bombastics actually outweigh the original, and they become the new mix for the movie. And it's best to try and preserve the original audio too, and give audiences the options. It kind of goes back to that whole the Star Wars side, when you know fans should be able to witness the original versions against the newer versions. And it's you want to be able to show where it was once to where it is now. And when it comes to Dragon Ball, this is an important thing that we noticed, was that the hi-fi audio for the original Dragon Ball, this is where my journey began, I guess, is higher quality. It is higher quality than what was originally on the Saga sets. The Saga sets, if I remember, they were there were some that were 256 and some that were 192 kilobits per second, and it sounded inferior. It sounded like muddy. It sounded like there was some, I don't know how to really describe it aptly, but it didn't sound clear. It had these imperfections that were there, and it did obstruct the general entertainment if you were listening on headphones or even on somewhat decent gear, right? When I got access to the hi-fi, I realized how much cleaner and clearer the audio was, thanks to Zero sharing some of the audio at first. I realized, like, maybe we should try and preserve this, and I'm glad that we did, because now we have something that is as close as to what Funimation originally produced. Quality aside of what people think of the dub, I feel that preserving the original version of the dub with flaws and all, because there were some issues that were fixed in the 5.1 remix for the Blue Bricks, there we needed to keep the original 2.0 as a where we were at one point. And since we're already working on the video and making it the highest quality possible, I felt that it was right to also fix as much as we can the original audio and include that as a preservational piece.
Right. So, fortunately with our Cetamite releases, we include, of course, the broadcast Japanese audio as well as the multiple English tracks, just to let people pick and choose. So, at this point, if I had never heard of this hi-fi audio or didn't understand, like you've sold me on it, right? Like, hey, this is a audio recording that A is of higher quality and B is closer to the original source. But that kind of brings me to, I guess, the first problem I would think of is if this audio is on VHS, how exactly do you capture that for a digital system? We computers don't really have a VHS drive like they would a DVD or Blu-ray drive.
Funnily enough, I didn't either. The last time that I had owned a VHS player was probably 2001, 2002. And after I heard the samples of the hi-fi audio, I wanted to be able to capture some of the tapes that were bad, right?
Mhm.
And that led me to purchase a player, a deck, at Goodwill, and that led me to figure out, okay, I got a player, but how do I get it from point A to point B
Right.
and to point C eventually?
Mm.
And I asked around, and there's someone that is known as a preservationist in our community. His name is Zero Cool, and he taught me how to capture the audio. The first thing he told me to do is we'd have to first get a high quality tape. Not all tapes and VHS players are created equal. Some tapes will play nicely with a deck and others won't. And that can create a lot of issues, particularly when it comes to the signal being captured or the audio being captured. You don't need a CRT to capture video, luckily. So there's no breaking your back and bringing in some 40, 50 pound hunk of a beast into your bedroom to try and record this. All you need is a simple dongle. In my case, Zero Cool recommended the OData GV USB 2. It's a small little dongle that connects to the composite or S video outputs of your VCR. And from there, you'd run that USB to your PC via, and you'd be able to use any video capture application. The one that I was taught to use was Virtual Dub, and it allows me to capture the video at a 16-bit, 48 kilohertz. There are other ways. There are other ways that you might be able to capture audio. I have done some in for different mediums, such as cassettes or even records, and I've captured those at 192 or even at 96 kilohertz. There really is no major benefits for the end user, but if you're restoring the audio, it does help you clean up the audio. It does give you a bigger playfield or playground, I should say, to clean up your audio. And once you have all your fixes in place, you'll be able to just bring it back down to the standard 16-bit, 48 kilohertz. I'll be honest, more often than not, the only reason why we even capture this is just the audio. We don't really need the video, mainly because we already have a higher quality video. So our goal has always been capture the highest quality version of the audio and clean it up, and then eventually sync it.
Okay, so you explained pretty well how you capture that audio. So once you've captured it, can you kind of walk us through an example of what the cleaning and syncing process looks like?
Sure. So all of the work that I do is done on two applications, and for cleanup, I use RX Isotope 10, and for syncing, I use Audacity. Um, Typically, if once you capture your audio, if you're lucky, uh, a small amount of noise reduction is all that's necessary to clean up the captured, and that's very rare that that would happen because it's totally dependent on the quality of the tape and or of the deck that you're using. And since not all VCR decks are created equal, and some tapes play nicer with other decks, um, you're going to have to do the full work. And and here's where we start to break things down. If we switch over to the main screen over here, I have a capture of the soundtrack for Snatcher from the Sega CD, and you'll see that I have four tabs open. I have four of them open because I want to demonstrate each phase of the cleanup process, and because they do take a bit to process the file, since it's about a 41-minute play file. So we'll start off with the first phase. Um, as I mentioned, not all tapes are created equal, right? And in some cases, um, we need to use a module called the azimuth module, right? And what azimuth is, in a technical answer, I should say, is that's the angle or directional displacement of sound in a horizontal plane. In basic, basically, how sound reaches your ears.
Okay.
Um, In some cases, you would hear, let's say that you're hearing a song, right? Maybe it's on a old cassette or an 8 track, or so maybe something old that's analog. And depending on the player, you'll either get a perfectly placed surround field or soundstage, I should say, and everything will sound even. Maybe you'll hear guitars on the left, drums in the middle, the singer somewhere between the middle and the left channel, ideally, right? But when you're capturing audio, some decks do not play nice with capturing the audio directly, right? And that creates a misalignment in the heads. And when that happens, sometimes your right channel and your left channel will be left unequal. So one channel might be louder or might be very soft compared to the other. And you would have to use azimuth in order to correct that. Sometimes it's not even just the way that the left and right channels are balanced. In some cases, it even desyncs one channel from the other. And as I'll demonstrate here, we have the raw play file, right? This right here, that's the wave, and that's the spectrogram. And the reason why I don't recommend to even capture at the highest quality possible is because there really isn't a benefit, so to speak, only if you're cleaning it up yourself. But for the end user, it doesn't make sense to give them a big file at such a high resolution, which in this case, it's a 32-bit float file at 96 kilohertz, which is a bit of an overkill for a videotape, for a cassette tape. So what we'll do first is we're going to try and correct the azimuth, right? And like I said, I already did it. So we'll click on the module. And this is what I asked it. I asked it to suggest it for me in the sake of simplicity. And what we're seeing here is that there is a difference between the left and the right channel. And the right channel is off by 0.012 gain. So that means that this needs to be increased a little, right? So if we hit the render button, it'll give us this result. If you focus right here,
Hmm.
you can notice the wave file increased slightly.
Oh yeah.
And another thing right here, it's also desynced by 7 samples or 0.1 milliseconds. So while it's not a huge thing, I mean, you could leave it as that because it's not a giant difference in the perception of your ear. But for the sake of demonstration, I went ahead and just left it like that. And now the audio should be balanced. That's the fixed one. And that's the original. Now, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to dehum it. A lot of analog audio, whether it's from the source or it's through your capturing methods, will introduce some sort of noise into or hum into your audio source. And you want to clean that up before you hit the final phase of the cleanup. So we'll move over to the next one. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what is known as the guitar denoise. There's some people that like to use the dehum. Now, I'll circle back to the dehum before we finish this part, but let's focus on the guitar noise. So as you can tell right here on the left channel, only the left channel has these 3 bars. These 3 bars right here, or this noise right here, that represents your buzz, your hum, the hum of the audio. And do you hear it?
Yeah, I could see it. My this video call's not picking up that audio, but I can see it.
Hmm. Okay. Well, the great thing is that you can actually see the bars right here, and they actually demonstrate that there's a lot of noise coming from the left channel. Okay, so what we would have to do is we'd have to use guitar denoise, and you do not click on the actual audio to learn a profile to create a profile of the noise, because then you'd actually pick up the noise that's actually part of the music or the audio file, right? You want just noise by itself. And what we do is we'd highlight this and then we'd learn that.
Mm.
And then it's going to learn everything in here and it'll pick up whatever is not supposed to be there, right? And in this case, it's going to pick up that low end hum right there. And since I already did it because it takes quite some time, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's cleaned.
Nice.
It shows up right here to show a difference. There you go. And there you go. The next part, there's a lot of bad connotation when it comes to digital noise reduction. DNRing, when done at a respectful levels, can give you very high quality audio, and it won't affect the fidelity of your audio mix. And I use this. I use this actually a lot during our Dragon Ball thing, mainly because the source audio had a lot of noise that permeated the entire sound mix. But I didn't want to kill the fidelity of the audio, so what I did is that I would check what it would take out. So um, we would click on the spectral recovery. The spectral denoise. And we instead of after we learn, just like guitar denoise, you pick a empty spot and you go ahead and learn, and it's going to analyze the noise profile and create it, right? But instead of just clicking render immediately, you're going to click output noise only. Now, the reason why I do that is because I want to make sure that whatever we're cleaning up is only noise, not anything else that's related to the actual audio mix. Say, for example, that you pick up that you do it like this, correct? And you just create a noise profile based on that. It will analyze some of the noise, but what happens if there's noise that's supposed to be there? Case in point, there was when we were cleaning up the Evangelion hi-fi audio. There's many scenes in the show where it's background noise, maybe cicadas, birds chirping, or maybe just the droll of city life, right? If you if you think that that's just the silence that you need to pick it up when you create a noise profile, it would actually add the noise, the noise that you don't want to pick up, such as the city life, the birds, the cicadas, and it's going to actually eliminate that from your audio mix. And as a teaser, that's kind of what I'm doing in order to repair the cicada issue in episode 15 for the VSI dub. So teaser for everyone there. In any case, let's go ahead and see what the guitar denoise or the spectral denoise does for us. So here we go. And there you go. As you can see, this is all the noise that's in that audio file. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you zoom in, you'll see that it's kind of like it's carving out what is only noise.
Okay.
And it's not affecting anything. And if we go back to it, you'll see that it's actually going right where the peaks end, and it's
Right.
cutting all that out, so that you don't have that high level noise in your background. And a majority of time, one pass is all you need. In very noisy tapes, particularly those from, let's say, there was a tape that I fixed for iChaos a couple of months ago, and it was for one of the creative dubs, I believe. And basically it had a lot of noise in them, and I had to do it almost 2 or 3 passes in order to get an acceptable mix of the out of it, because the noise was permeated everywhere. If you think that this is thick right here, orange, I've never seen it completely orange, and that's a lot of noise.
Right.
But more often than not, just one pass is more than enough, and it picks up a lot of the noise. And that leads me to the final slide. So, as you can see right here, that's all noise. And you can see that it's a little thick right here, that line, right? That's,
Right.
you can say that's a representation of noise. And we'll go ahead and clean it. And as you can see, now it's a lot more thinner, and the noise was reduced everywhere. And none of the audio was fixed. At this point, you are, for all extents and purposes, done with the cleanup. Because it is a little loud, because I captured it a little loud, I should say. But luckily it's not peaking, so these waves files are not cutting through the roof. Basically, what I would do at this point is just degain it a little or normalize it, bring it down like 2 or 3. Put shanks right here, and there you go. And now the audio won't be as it won't be ear piercing, but it also won't be incredibly loud. I mean, at this point, you can just easily just raise the volume, but you'll retain all the dynamics of the mix, and that's a complete cleanup right there. In some cases, there are more far involved. For example, when we're doing the spectral denoise or the guitar denoise, I'm sorry, you might have to use the dehum, but you only use the dehum because certain parts of the audio mix demands it. So when you do guitar denoise, it does a global check on all that hum, right? All that low end hum. But there are other sections of hum that can be baked into the audio mix, and they really like to be attracted to sound effects, music, or the majority of time when it came to Dragon Ball, characters talking, and it sounds like a very harsh sound, kind of like that. And you can use dehum on sections of that audio to take that harshness out, and it restores the clearness of it. But that's outside the scope of this. That's why I didn't want to show that, because it's very involved, and sometimes it can take upwards of an hour to clean up an entire episode when it comes to that.
Right. Well, I mean, this is, certainly an impressive demonstration. I think anyone who is curious about the process now should, have a little bit more of an understanding. And then one thing I just want to bring up, of course, is, for 150 plus or 60 plus Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball GT episodes, sometimes little problems can slip through the crack. You're dealing with, analog audio. And even after you do this, we have, a team of people to listen to it very carefully. And sometimes you'll have, like half a second or just a tiny little like pop or crack in the audio. And they're able to work with you and identify these problems and say like, hey, we hear a problem here, and you're able to go in and fix it. And I just think it's impressive, not just to you, of course, but for the whole team, that we have the resources to be able to go through and make that audio sound, as in sync as it can be, and as high quality and free of issues as possible.
Oh, I agree with you completely there. I doing just doing the cleanup alone was a task in itself, but that's just like the first half of what we do when it comes to the quality control. And I can't thank a lot of members, like Zero Cool, Red Dead Encode, or even Hikari, that um, pay close attention to the little subtleties of the audio mix, and are able to actually track down the caked in buzz, the pops, the clicks, and these are all things that we have tried our best to clean. And it's thanks to them that we're able to locate them, because one person alone, uh, I would go insane if it was just me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I couldn't have done it without anyone else. I couldn't have done it without the help of everyone else in our team. So I'm very happy that everyone is up to fixing and going crazy down this rabbit hole with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, we talked about Dragon Ball, but are there any other projects, whether audio or otherwise, you've worked on recently that maybe you want to bring up for the audience listening?
We did just finish the Godzilla -1 project a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, and it's a revised English script thanks to the work of Ides Butler and WPR, and it was as best as we could. We did take the Anthony Kim's full translation and try to fix it up and fix some context issues, but we may be revisiting sometime in the future now that the officially revised subtitles on that are out, and for the giggles, maybe even test out the English dub. Aside from that, that's the last major thing that I've done. We have done a couple other side projects, like the rebuild of Evangelion movies, which I do advise everyone to try out, since I did use the Jensen encodes, which are very high quality, and he fixed a lot of issues, but they just needed a little TLC on the audio and subtitle side, and they're worth checking out if you're an Ava fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, that's your recent accomplishments. Are there any, future projects we can look forward to?
Ooh, that's the big one that we keep getting a lot of questions on, and that's the Ava project. I'm happy to say that we are doing our best to provide one of the most comprehensive archives for the series, and we've had the pleasure of many fans from the Ava community to reach out and offer assistance. Some have even shared never before seen extras, or even words of advice on issues that they have found throughout the years. And it does warm my heart that we actually have such a dedicated fandom that's trying to reach out to us and help us in any way possible. And we hope, fingers crossed, that we're able to cross the finish line sometime this year.
Right.
And with yes, and that's one that I really want us to complete. And it's a series that deserves it. And we'll have more information on that later this year. Within this Godzilla subgroup, we did have interest in tackling Shin Godzilla, and I did recently purchase the Japanese release of the 4K and the orthochromatic version of the film. And one of our members did say that there are better subs out there, so we might investigate it, and who knows, maybe we'll do a release on that too.
Hey, that's good to hear. I do think one of the more frustrating realities is, everyone here is a volunteer. They have either full-time jobs, families, or school. We have a bit of a running joke, when it's finals week or finals month, that no work gets done in the Cedomite server. But I like to think those delays it's not because of people giving up or being frustrated. It's we can only invest a certain amount of time, and we're just making sure everything looks as good as it can look, sounds as good as it can sound. And as you can see, that's more than just finding a high quality source. There's actual some work that needs to be done on those audio sources, and of course reads as accurately as it can read, with those subtitles. So despite some of the waits for some of these projects uh, taking much longer than I thought, I'm definitely looking forward for Eva. As it sometimes gets delayed due to working on other sources, like we're only a limited number of people. Um, I certainly think fans should keep faith that we are working on it. Just sometimes life happens as it does, but it's not something we've given up on.
Okay.
So with that, anything you'd like to close out the video on?
I want to say thank you to everyone that has ever helped us, and thank you to the team that we keep pushing ourselves. Yes, we meme on each other often, but I feel that that's for the best because it keeps us all sane and it keeps us all motivated to keep going. And I look forward to everything that we work in the future for because I'm sure that fans will really enjoy some of our surprises in the near future.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Krycek. This was a good interview. I certainly learned a thing or two about some of these audio edits that you've done. I certainly really appreciate that. And just like you, I'm looking forward to what we have in the future. Thank you very much.
Mhm. Thank you so much for having me on.